Hello and welcome to the second workshop in our Christmas in July event with Venetia Ramsey from Scrapworx. Today in this workshop we are going to create a double page layout using patterns from our collection called Vintage Soul. You will be creating a double page layout that looks like this, and remember, you are not bound to use the patterns that I have used. You can use whatever you have in your stash. I will again refer to it as pattern paper 1, 2, 3, 4, making it easier instead of giving you specific names. If I say to you this is pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, it just makes it easier for you to follow along. All right. So I did say there will be a little bit of mixed media in this project. The only mixed media that you can really call it is the little splatters on the background. So it's very little. And then I'm just going to show you in the technique videos how to paint your embellishments and use some embossing glaze to create the distressed mottled look that we've managed to do here. So in the next part, I'll run through all the supplies that you need, and we can then start to put the page together. Okay, so before we get started with cutting out the backgrounds, and before I give you all the measurements for that, I just want to give you an idea of how I go about choosing the inks or paints when I have a pattern paper collection. So I'll have a look at what I have and decide if I want to use ink or paint or both or sprays. So you decide that, and then you need to have a look and see which colors you think will match. So I'm wanting to work with the distressed paints. You can use any acrylic paint that you have on hand. You do not necessarily have to use the distress. I know them, and I work well with these, this particular brand. Okay, so these are the ones that I thought would work well with this collection. So I have fossilized amber, iced spruce, bundle sage, pumice stone, and walnut stain. I won't necessarily use them all. I always have white nearby, some white acrylic paint, because like I say, you never know when you're going to need that. So that's always near. So then what I do is I open them up and I swatch out the colors onto a piece of white cardstock like that. And then I will hold it against my pattern to see if it's going to work with what I've chosen. So the front cover is always a good place to start. You can straight away see that these colors will definitely work. And then I write them down, because if you just swatch them and they get lost on your table, you'll forget which ones they are. And I know that in the butterfly paper, maybe I've got one that I haven't inked so you can see better. Yep. So in the butterfly paper, there's this like greeny, yellowy color coming through. And so it's not quite yellow and it's not quite green. But if I mixed bundle sage with fossilized amber, I get a color that is very similar to what's going on in the background there. So it's not a complete blend. It's like bundle sage with some fossilized amber on top and kind of speckled together. So that's going to work really well. Then I need to decide what color, because I like to ink around the edges. I do the same here. I need to decide if I want to go with a black soot or if I wanted to go with a brownie color. Then to do that, I'll cut a piece of one of the little leftover pieces, and I'll ink around the edges. So I've inked around the edges here with ground espresso distress oxide, and I've done the black here. Either one will work, but it just depends on the effect that you're wanting to create. So ground espresso will look good, and so will the black soot, but I want a more softer, like aged feeling instead of the cool, more formal feel that the black would give. So I'm going to use a ground espresso distress oxide to ink around the edges of everything, and this is my color palette for my butterflies and titles, and then also to add the splatters on the background. So because I'm choosing a white background, I don't want to work with just plain white. I would like to have some depth and some sort of pattern on the background, but not too busy. So I'll be showing you later on how to make the splatters on your base page. Okay. So I've run through the colors of paints that I will be using. I will be inking around the edges with ground espresso and distress oxide. and I will probably be going over some of the butterflies with some embossing glaze, but we'll get through that a little bit later. Okay, so I'm just going to pack everything away and I will be back to give you the measurements for your pattern papers. Right, then we always on our front covers, we always add in a little bonus sheet. So from this, in this case, we have all these little elements that you can fussy cut. So from this sheet, you're going to need this little goodie that says smile. You will need some of the little labels from here. So I've only cut 2 out. Then I cut out the word documented, but I cut off the little tabs, and best moments. I've cut that out, and I've also cut it straight. I didn't want the little arrows. I have this little label, and then I've cut out the little dotted one and this little tag with the little bird and the foliage on. And like I said, that comes from the other one. So those are kind of the goodies that you're going to need. I'll put them out separately so that you can see. So just to recap from the little embellishment sheet, we need this. Just took that one. So if you're not using the same collection as what I am, you basically need 2 tags, 2 labels, 2 sentiments, a bigger like ticket type label, and then a banner. Okay, and then from the cut apart sheet, if you're not using this one, you need 2 full cut aparts that we're going to use. Then we need, if you don't have this as a cut apart, you can just cut a piece of pattern. So 2 pieces of pattern that are exactly the same, 7.5 centimeters across, 10 centimeters down. And then you need a sentiment and something that you can add to your title. So those are the little extras that we'll need to add to the page. Okay. Then for your pattern papers, I'm going to again refer to pattern paper 1, 2, and 3. It's easier that way. In your notes, I will have put in the names of the papers. So for your pattern paper number 1, you're going to need a piece that measures 15 centimeters across, 25 centimeters down, and another piece that measures 5 centimeters across and 25 centimeters down. So that is your pattern paper 1. For pattern paper number 2, I'm going to be, you only need 1 sheet. I'm going to be using this butterfly page. You just need 1 piece that measures 15 centimeters across, 25 centimeters down. For your pattern paper number 3, you are going to need 1 piece that measures 7 centimeters across and 20.5 centimeters down, and another piece that measures 4 centimeters across, 23 centimeters down. And then out of your pattern paper number 4, you're going to need 1 piece that measures 10 centimeters across, 11 centimeters down, and another piece that measures 6 centimeters across and 12 centimeters down. And like I said, if you're not going to use the little cutouts parts like I am going to the back of these, if you're not using this collection, you will need another 2 patterns exactly the same that measures 7.5 centimeters across and 10 centimeters down. You will need 2 of those. And then for your photo mats, we have 1 photo that is 15 centimeters across, 10 centimeters down. So you have 1 landscape, and then you have 2 portraits that measure 10 centimeters across, 15 centimeters down. So for your photo mats, you'll need 3 pieces that measure 10.5 centimeters by 10.5 centimeters by 15.5 centimeters. You'll need 3 of those. And out of your dark, you'll need 3 pieces that measure 16 centimeters by 11 centimeters. And they will become the photo mats like that. Okay, so we're just using standard size photos, 1 landscape, 2 portrait. You can change the orientation or the size as need be. So we'll need all that. And then I will be inking around the edges of my mats with ground espresso Distress Oxide ink. So So what I just want to do one with you, and I'll do the rest off camera. So I like to bump my, you can see on the side there, I like to, on the side of my glass media mat, I like to bump my pad up against there. So when I need to pick up ink, I don't have to stop, let go of this, stop, pick up ink and go again. I use my mat as my third hand, so it just bumps up. So when I'm rubbing my ink along on here, it stays against it. So I don't need any fancy mats, things to take up space where I'm working. I just use the mat, my glass media mat, as my third hand. And all we're going to do is pick some ink up and gently go around the edges, lightly go around the edges of our photo mats. So I start by blending off the mat and bringing the ink onto the surface that I'm working on. Okay, so now I'm just pulling it on, up and down. But if you want a more blended look, it is nice, it is better to work in a circular motion. I hold my tool at a 45-degree angle. Even though I have the domed foam, I still only want to catch a little bit of ink onto the side of my photo mat. I don't want to bring the ink too far across, and the domed foam allows you to get just a tiny little bit of control. If you want a more shaded effect, I like to come in with one of the stenciling brushes, and whatever's left on the mat, just work that in onto the photo mat like that. And the ink, the oxide ink, stays wet for a little bit longer, so it just gives me an opportunity just to give that very soft blended look like that. Okay, so again, I pick some ink up, so like that, holding the blending tool at an angle. I'm going to work off the mat onto the surface, take it from off the mat and onto the surface in a circular motion. Just like that. And down the other side. And then if you want to blend that in just a little bit more, take a stencil brush to give you that a little bit more of a blended, softer finish around the edges. And all I'm doing is whatever ink is left on my mat, I'm pulling over. So any hard lines I've managed to work out by doing it this way. I don't always do them like this, it just depends on the look that I'm trying to achieve. And there you go. So then that will get matted onto my dark brown cardstock like that, and then I will add a photo to that. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with the others, and I will see you in a bit. Okay, so once you've inked around the edges of your photo mats, you can see now that they look all nice and vintagey instead of being that harsh white. I've managed to get them to look soft and blended, and not a very hard finish off the edges like I did with the previous layout. Then I used the same technique to ink around the edges of my pattern papers. Just want to let you know that when you do your pattern paper number 1, the broader piece, the 15 by 25, is going on the left side of the page, and the smaller piece, the 5 by 25, is going on the right side of the page. So when you ink this, please remember not to ink down the middle, because that's where your page joins, and you don't want to have a clear definition between left and right. We want the page to flow. So remember with this one that you only ink the top, the left, and the bottom of the piece that measures 15 by 25. And the piece that measures 5 by 25, you're going to ink the top, the right, and the bottom. Okay, just remember that. Okay, so before we attach the patterns to the layout, I'm going to quickly show you how I created this splattered effect on my background. Okay, you'll see when I added my splatters, I aimed mainly for the the top, the right, and the bottom. And when we do this one, we're going to go the top, the left, and the bottom. Okay, so what you'll need for this, I like to work on a piece of acetate. Just to put my inks on that, I'll put that down there. So the colors I chose for my background to create my splatters are these 4 colors. I'm going to be using walnut stain, ice spruce, bundle sage, and fossilized amber. The order I'm going to do is from lightest to darkest. So I'm going to go bundle sage first, ice spruce, then fossilized amber, and walnut stain. So for this, all I did was put a little bit of paint on my acetate. We don't need a lot. I'm going to spritz a little bit of water on the acetate and put some paint into that water. Okay, and then take my paintbrush add some water to the mat and get that water mixed in with the paint. So you want to have quite a liquidy paint mixture, and then hold it close to your page because I want little splatters, and then splatter that on. I want a fine splattering of bundle sage on my page. Now I know that I said to you that I wanted to go top, but it's hard for me to work this way around. So basically I'm working with my paper upside down because all I'm going to do when I'm done is turn it the way that it needs to be. For me, it's easier to tap this way than to try and do it this way. Okay? You'll find what works for you. So you're just going to put on a light splattering of the bundle sage. Okay. And then rinse off your brush. Use the paper towel to clean up your palette. And I'm just going to give this a tiny little bit of time to sit so that the paint can pull into the background. Okay, and then I'm just going to, I don't want to dry it with a heat tool, I'm just going to roll over with my paper towel and pick up any of the splatters that may still be wet. Okay, this is the only one that I'm going to take off, the rest will stay. The next color I'm going to add the same way is ice spruce. And get some on the mat. If your sponges have dried, you can put some on the mat. Spray some water on your acetate and then just rub your distressed paint into that. It'll any paint that's in there will get wet, and you can see how much is coming out now. Okay. Right, so you want to get that a little bit wetter. Make sure that your brush is clean. Go in and mix that paint up. And splatter on again. Okay, I'm going to leave that there and add some fossilized amber. We can wet that. I'm going to clean off my brush and mix the water in with the paint. And then just drag a little bit of the bundled sage, listen to me, a little bit of the ice spruce into the fossilized amber, just to tone down the very bright. And then splatter on some of those. I don't want as much as I have with the other colors. I just want a little bit of that yellow coming through. Okay, then here and there I'm going to, I think we can do with some more over here. Here and there I am going to pick up on one or two of the little splatters and make them slightly bigger. So where there is already a splatter of the fossilized amber, I'm just going to take one of those that has already landed on the page and make it just a little bit more defined. You can pick and choose where you want and how many you want to make bigger, like that. Okay, and then I think it just needs a little bit more here and a little bit more here, like that. Right, I'm going to clean this up and then we can add the ground espresso. Okay, so the last color I'm going to add is the ground espresso. Give that a bit of a shake. Same thing, I'm just going to put some paint on my acetate. Make sure my brush is clean. Water this down a bit. And then go in and add some more splatters. This one I'm going to make it look more like a line. So instead of going like tick, 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 tick with my fingers, I'm actually just giving it a little bang so that you can see it gives like a line of color. So a little bit less evenly, and ooh, look at that one. And less of an even distribution. Okay, and then we can go and give that light splattering like that. Okay, and there we go. That is your splattered background created. Okay, you will repeat the process on the other side. And I don't dry this now or take anything off. I just put it aside so that it can dry by itself. I'll show you with the one that goes next to it like that. Okay, so that's going to look quite nice. What I will do, probably as this dries it'll darken. I know it looks a bit light now, but it will go nice and dark like that. I'm just going to put everything aside and let it dry. I might ink around the edges of the entire sheet, but I'll think about that as we go. Something you can add at the end, but it's not something you can take away if you don't like it. So we'll leave that for the end. Okay, so I'm going to clean up and put everything aside, and then we can start putting everything together.